What question should every data professional ask themselves once a year?
Do I make any impact?
Why analytics engineering actually emerged? What was the need of it?
Like historic perspective. Obviously, this title is relatively new, right? It's a bit older than AI engineers, obviously. For sure, yeah. Like you just start with what you like, right? And with what you feel is right for you, and then you just refine along the way, along your career.
Why would you hire me and why would you not hire me? So most people watching this would be confused between data analytics, analytics engineer, data engineer, and of course there comes AI roles. And they all feel late already. So is this confusion real or are we just overthinking data job titles?
Yeah. So like historically, like if you think like 20 years ago, we only had data analysts, maybe some first data engineers, right? And we kind of always overloaded those titles with responsibilities, right? Because if it's data, it comes to this department, and like no one really cared much about the
Right.
distinction between the roles, right? But I think like at some point we figure out that okay, probably we need to distinguish, who does what, and in long run it should actually help both sides. Those who want something from the data, right, and the people who work in data, right. So, and that's why,
Right.
first we started, we've added data scientists, right? It's a special person who works, with uh, early AI, early machine learning, neural network, stuff like that. And then, okay, and then we said like, there is too much overload on data analysts and data engineers in the front of, dashboards, right? So we said, okay, we need BI engineers, right? And then BI engineers said, okay, I'm too stretched. I work on BI tool, but I also need to work on data modeling, right? So that's when we said like, okay, probably we need analytics engineers, who can work on data modeling. So, and this always like every step, we actually reduced the scope for, one role, but we increased, the depth, right? So now one specialist can, be specialist in one domain, in one topic, which means that we are not, spread thin on the data stack. And when you specialize, you can deliver better results, obviously, right? Because you are not doing the work that where you are not excellent, right? You only like you only improve your field, your field of work, right? And this is where this is where the excellence comes from, right? And now we have a new role, right, which is AI, AI engineers, and they also like I still feel that they are a bit roughly defined because is it AI developer who works on a backend, or is it a BI person who works on the data or on something else, or with like stakeholders communication or end users communication. So yeah, I think this role will still have a few changes, right? And we all know that it's obviously hype and like everyone wants to have it.
Right.
For now, I would still say, if you, pursue, your career in like, let's say you like data analysis, right? So obviously you should go somewhere, data analytics, data scientist, maybe BI analyst, right? And you just treat this new AI trend as a like additional skill that you have, right? As a like to me the most the coolest name of those tools is Copilot, because it exactly explains what the tool is, right? It helps you. It's like your
Right.
second pilot, right? It's your second brain. So yeah, just like do what you love, right? Don't go for the trend. And I mean, if you love building AI systems, if you love agents, RAGs, LLMs, obviously go for it. It's just like for me, from data perspective, I see that for me right now it's just like a skill, and not necessarily a separate role. But yeah, I might be wrong, right? It's probably I'm too biased towards data engineering. But yeah, so I feel it's more like skill for now.
You have summed up everything, right? From starting, what are the different roles and what should you do? But if someone is just starting, I don't think that they should like think a lot about the roles, because
Mm,
as you can understand what the situation of the job market is and what used as compared to what it
right,
used to be 2 3 years ago. So I guess the first thing anyone if coming in the data roles, or basically if wants to get a career in the tech, they should just start with a job, a tech job, and then they can figure
mm,
out what they like, what they don't like, and all. Right?
right. One thing that like, and it's been for me like every time I changed my title, it was the case that your title always lives your responsibilities. It means that you sometimes you can do senior level work as when you are still in middle, right? Sometimes you do you like do some technical work that you are not supposed to do, which is outside of your scope, right? Sometimes you own
Yeah.
some critical parts of the system, critical parts of the data stack, data landscape, without formal authority. So you don't have this in your responsibilities, but because you like it, but because it helps you, you cannot take ownership. You do that, uh, and like it means that like your progress is not linear, right? It's not like, okay, now today you are middle, which means that today you're going to do this and that, right? Or today we promote you to senior, which means that you get this and that. So it's actually the other way around. You first start doing those things, right? And then you get recognition that, okay, you are probably not a middle or a junior anymore, right? You need a new grade. So yeah, just remember that titles can lag what you do, right? So, and probably the same with like even different titles. So, I started as data analyst, but I was doing a lot of technical work, right? And at some point, I just asked my manager, "Hey, look, my title is that, but I do this, and this, right? Which is obviously not a part of my responsibilities. Let's, think about, like of something, of a new role, new title, and it usually it helped me grow and change titles, and finally I refined it to the way that I know exactly who I am, what I do, and now I do what I like to do.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
I guess at once a time you need to evaluate yourself as well, like what you are doing and what you actually want to do and what your roles are.
For sure, yeah. Like you just start with what you like, right, and with what you feel is right for you, and then you just refine along the way, along your career. Right? Okay, I like more, the AI stuff. So okay, maybe someday you will get this AI prefix in your role, right? AI data engineer or
Yeah.
like AI
Yeah.
data analyst. So yeah, I think it's all fluid, and like we all humans, we all understand that it's impossible to know in advance, what you like and what you want to do for your whole career, right? It's just impossible. So yeah, just go with the flow.
Right. In India, there's a saying that if you don't know what you want to do, just do engineering. So so that's
Nice.
why you see a lot of engineers coming from India, and like most of the people, if they don't know, the parents say that just do engineering or
Right.
be a doctor, and then you can figure out. Most of the time it's engineering, because for doctor you need to have sympathy,
Yeah.
you need to have like
Yeah.
uh, a strong inline alignment towards like medical and
Hmm.
all. But if you don't know what you want to do, or if you want to explore in your life, just do engineering and then you will figure it out what you want to do. Let's more jump into your specific thing, that is analytics engineering. So
Hmm.
why analytics engineering actually emerged? What was the need of it? Because right now, if I remember, when I was in school, that was I guess around 2018-19. So
Mhm.
I was not like, I have not heard these analytics engineer roles a lot.
For
At
sure.
that time, the most famous term was data scientist, the most
For sure.
sexiest job on the planet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know who gave that title to data scientist, but yeah, it emerged as the most sexiest role on the planet at that time in the tech. And even during my college, I was not aware of analytics engineering.
Yeah, for sure. So, like in from like historic perspective, obviously this title is relatively new, right? It's a bit older than AI engineers, obviously, right? But I would say like at least second oldest, right? Second youngest, sorry. Um, I think like one thing why this title emerged is it's not exactly like a completely new field of work, right? And why I say that, because I mentioned that we for a long time we had data analysts, BI engineers, like data engineers, data scientists, but there was a work that was actually shared across all of them, right? And almost none of them wanted to do it properly, right? So
Right.
so this was like one like first like stepping stone, and then it's actually about like 10 years ago, if you can think about that. This guy Tristan Handy, he developed in mind his like framework. It wasn't even a framework back then, it was just a tool that should help data analysts and data engineers write better SQL, right? And then the tool called DBT,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
and at some point, Tristan figured that it has a future. It has a very solid, foundation, and so he started, bringing more and more, efforts into like developing this tool, and also like bringing um, some practices from software engineering into data, right? So basically we emerged in this point where, on the one hand, there is already work that is done by other titles, like, data modeling is done by either, BI engineers or data engineers, right? There is some, dashboarding work that was done by, data analysts, again, like BI engineers. We only developed, the data engineering field, grew into like its own domain, right? So data engineering started to, accumulate knowledge on how to do data properly. And then there's this new framework, new way of thinking that, okay, we need to bring even more of the best practices from software engineering into data, and we need to make it easy to use, right? So that's why we started hearing more, and I think like it was probably like 2020 where we had like fully defined, okay, what, like if we would define a new role, and call it analytics engineer, what would be responsibilities of this role, right? And then we figured, okay, so this is a person who's probably in between data engineering and data analysts, right? And this person can handle this transition, like this can act as a bridge between those two, right? So analytics engineer is more technical than any of the data analysts, right? But also more business proficient than any of the data engineers, right? So it's like fits exactly in between. And so this person can translate, raw data into like pure, into like clean data models, right? And give them to data analysts and BI tools to analyze, right? So we defined it. We defined it that this is the role in between, and we also overloaded with some useful best practices like data quality, right? Data quality is important. We
Right.
learned that we need to do like a proper observability, right? We need to know how exactly our raw data is transformed into final metrics, right? Into final tables, final data marks, right? We need to know what each step means, right? Which led us to bring in more documentation into that, right? And obviously, one other major factor which played very good together with analytics engineers was the emerge of so-called modern data stack, where vendors, they actually started democratizing how those data tools, how to use those data tools, how to set them up, how to manage them, how to support them, how to properly secure them, right? So it was so much easier to do, in around 2020s, right? Plus minus. That by itself, now if you think that if you want to start a data team, in a fresh, if you start a fresh team in a new company, it's actually makes very much sense to hire analytics engineer, because analytics engineer can know, it knows a lot about, they know a lot about engineering part. They can work with the business. They can set up their whole infrastructure thanks to modern data stack tools, right? So it's actually a very big leap into how we start the team now, right? Because one person can do quite a lot and quite fast, right? Yeah, and I still see that not everyone is happy about that. Especially, I for some reason I can see some rage comments from DBAs, database administrators. No, analytics engineer is artificial role created by DBT. You shouldn't listen to yourself. You are data engineer, or you are BI engineer, whatever. But yeah, it actually supports this the fact that this is a new title, right? So you right now there is no person who is indifferent. So you are either all in for analytics engineer, so you know why this role exists and you want to have it in your team, or you are on a completely different spectrum, you don't care at all, right? So I guess it takes time. It takes time to adopt, and I think I'm trying to do my best, to kind of highlight what this role is, what's our responsibilities, what they should, what they shouldn't do. Yeah, and basically, trying to popularize this movement. Yeah.
So what do you say to those hate comments?
What I say to those comments, we are sitting in front of a display and nothing is real, right? So the whole IT industry isn't real, right? What are you talking about? You can imagine whatever you want, right? It's all just zeros and numbers on some computer, some remote computer, right? So
I guess DBAs are jealous because DBA, I guess, is one of the roles that gets the lowest highlight in the data community.
Could be, yeah, could, and obviously, yeah, probably they are kind of angry that we now have clouds, right? We now have modern tools which allow anyone, you can start your Snowflake cluster only using the browser. You don't have to do any commands. You don't have to have a terminal. You don't have to have anything, right? So you can set up your own data warehouse through browser. Obviously, they some of them feel that this is a threat, right? So
Right.
yeah.
If that's a big company, you need DBAs and walls. But yeah, if it's a small company, small startup with a small data team, not much to invest in that, I guess then instead of bringing a team of consultant, and you can just bring one or two data guys, kind of
For
what you
sure.
suggested. So that would be far better. They can set up everything in their own, and they know how to talk to business as well.
For sure. Just think about the fact that you only need on premise if you have a huge scale. Okay, if you are Facebook, if you are Netflix, then it makes sense to hire DBAs to host everything on prem, to do any customizations you want, right? But if you think about smaller companies, like small and medium companies, even the cost of data tool, like if you just compare, like on one hand you have the cost of the data tool per year, and the other hand the cost of like an engineer per year. Like until until the data tool costs less than a data engineer, you should always pick a data tool. Like even if sometimes it feels expensive, right? Sometimes when you see the bill that 50,000 or like whatever, like 50,000 per year for some tool, and you're like, okay, that's a lot, right? But then in North America, if you look at the salaries of engineers, it's like at least twice more. It's going to be twice
Right.
slow because this person needs to set everything up. This person will need to support that. Obviously, if something goes wrong, this person needs to fix it, and it takes a lot of time, right? So if you just look at this comparison, okay, so probably now this 50,000 per year is not a big number compared to
Right.
100,000 for
Right.
a person.
Especially like when we talk about architecture and data tools. So what kind of data tools you use or you have used till now in your career, and with what kind of architecture you have worked, especially in data architectures or problems you have worked with?
Okay, yeah. So I work with many like different setups. So I worked with on-prem setups where we hosted, our own like Hadoop and our own databases, and we try to do everything ourselves. And we have like a fleet of, DevOps and IT engineers who like helped us. But in the recent time, I work more with companies who actually like smaller in size, and they work more on like how to deliver insights rather than how to support data infrastructure, right? So it's not only about the data volume. Volume still can be big, but the velocity. So what I said that if you can employ a data tool which is faster to use, like easier to use, and you know that you always have a support from the team who's developing the tool. So currently I'm working in a setup where we have like all our data stack is the cloud stack, right? So we don't support any of the on-premise stuff. To some extent, we don't even use any like advanced and complex tools like Airflow for orchestration. So we don't use that. So right now we are good with like low code or like no code alternatives. Because we feel that
No.
it actually speeds us up, right? So we are not stuck on rewriting our DAGs. We are more on the like iteration. Let's do something quickly. Let's see the result. If the result is fine, we can later on we may think about doing it more properly. But again, this is the cost between like delivering the solution, delivering the perfect solution with sometimes like people think that the perfect solution is when everything is codified, when everything is in Git repository and stuff like that. This is true to some extent, right? Especially probably for backend developers. But in data, where we have like fast-paced environment, where requirements may change tomorrow. Like we will shift our business, like pivot our business into a bit different direction, right? Or like we start a new initiative, which means that we don't have this luxury of let's develop a new data model in 6 months, right? No, we need something yesterday, right? So we need to make decisions, even if the data is like 80% accurate, right? We cannot wait 6 months for it to be 100% accurate, right? And
Right.
in that way, like working with cloud architectures for us is actually beneficial, right? So we don't over engineer our stack, right? So we try to pick the tools tools from the shelf, right? Okay, so if you need data integration, go with Fivetran, go with Airbyte Cloud, go with some other vendors. Yes, it as I said, it may feel expensive, and to some extent it is expensive. But again, if you think into this equation where you have, on the one hand, you have the cost for the tool, and on the other hand, you have the cost of the person, and also the time that you will spend, of this person to build your solution. In many cases, it's actually justifiable to buy the tool and move forward, multiply your ROI for the business, and that will cover the cost, right? So
Right.
yeah, and one other thing that I see, this is probably true for me. It's not necessarily true for the industry. I try to work with like more, not I wouldn't say like easier tools, but like simpler tools. So for example, I do not work with Databricks and Spark, or like even Python is sometimes out of the scope. So we try to solve our problems with, as I said, no code or low code tools, because we want to have this fast life cycle where we have requirement, we quickly build some solution, and then we immediately check it. If it fits us, if it brings value. Otherwise, we would spend a lot of time writing the code, developing the solution.
At one point, you would be delivering your solutions as a dashboards, because at the end, right, we are working with data, so we need to show the data correctly. So what are your thoughts on the number of dashboards the data team produces versus how many of them actually get used?
Right. I think I have a bit different perspective on that, in the sense that I believe that the value of data team is not exactly producing the dashboards, but
Right.
actually, enabling business stakeholders to produce their dashboards themselves. So this is a bit new kind of perspective on that. So,
Okay.
we picked a BI tool, which is actually more of a self-serve solution, rather than necessarily like a dashboarding tool. So in
Okay.
our setup, we our end product is not necessarily a dashboard. So we even try to emphasize in our team that, in our company, that we can deliver you the data model behind the dashboard, right? And then each business team can build whatever they want out of the data model, right? So this is so-called like self-serve model, where we, as analytics engineer, we work on data modeling. We produce, so-called like those data marts, right? So like this clean tables with clean data, and then we use our BI tool to actually. So there's this one thing called semantic layer, right? And so we have a
Okay.
BI tool which supports semantic layer. So we define semantic layer in our BI tool, right? And it gives those self-service capabilities to our business users, right? So instead of us, building 1,000 dashboards like regarding transactions, we build like a single domain, like self-serve interface, which is called, transactions, where you can pick whatever, metrics you want, whatever, breakdowns, filters yourself, right? So our business teams actually build dashboards for themselves rather than we are building them. We have like a few dashboards that are like company level, critical, which are, executive dashboards. This is obviously on the data side, on the data team plate, where we like kind of, we develop, we support, we maintain those dashboards, because they are like very high level. They show, the health of the business, and like mostly used by executives, right? But on the lower level, so let's say, finance team, they care about, the transactions, like transaction pipeline, orders, buyers, stuff like that, right? While marketing, they care about obviously like marketing dashboards, they care about, marketing data sets, they care about users, stuff like that. So every team may have their own kind of requirements. So that's why we are not building dashboards for themselves, for them, right? So we say like, okay, here's the self-serve capability. You can start with whatever topic you want, and you can build the dashboard yourself. So we may act as, as like approver. So for example, if they are not sure, if they picked, correct filters or like correct breakdowns, they can come to us. We can say, we can check their work. We can say, okay, yeah, that's fine to use, like, or, you should add this or that filter to the dashboard. But yeah, we are like shifted from the model where data team develops the dashboards.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because I work, so I basically have built dashboards for starting from the executive level, because as a like
Mhm.
companies have company wide dashboards, everything on it, all the important metrics, whether it's sales, finance, production, receivables,
Mhm.
payables, everything. So yeah, I started from there, especially me and other guy, and then from there we have then went to the like, CFO dashboard, then
Yeah.
CBO dashboard, basically for sales people, and then we have started like department wise dashboard. So still the one problem I face is for the upper level, like the executive levels, they are fine
Mhm.
because they know how to use them, how to like filter them. Sometimes we are there to help and all to basically but the problem comes when you go to the lower level. So
Mhm.
they have like different if you take the finance team, so they are like some of the Excel wizards. In finance you will find all
Yeah.
those Excel wizards who have been working
Yeah.
like who can just do everything by closing their eyes in Excel. But when we go with like tools like here's that's a Power BI dashboards, and you can
Mhm.
get everything here. So it takes a lot of time to actually get them comfortable with those tools. So how do you
Right.
manage them to train those guys?
For sure, for sure. Like one question from me before I answer. What's the BI tool that you use?
We use
If
Power
you're
BI
using
simply. So we
Power
have the
BI.
entire
Okay, yeah.
Microsoft interface. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see. Yeah, so this was probably our like conscious decision to go for a tool which actually supports the semantic layer, right? Because so like in our case we use Omni, but if you ever use like Looker, for example, it's very similar
Hmm.
concept, right? Where you have a notion of basically topics, right? So we have users topic, we have transactions topic, like many other, right? So you start as a and the interface actually what is interesting, the interface very similar to Excel, because first you start with like records and columns, but and only then you turn it into visualization. So that's probably why we succeeded in like with our use case, where when you build a dashboard, you only have your own vision for the dashboard, in a sense that okay, you build a dashboard, you probably satisfied all the requirements that were initially put right for this dashboard, but it's really rigid structure where you cannot easily dive into like specifics of each metric. Maybe you can do like to some extent, right? But it's always going to be hard to go from high level metrics and drill down into specific user level metrics. So
Right.
in this case, so our choice of BI tool was conscious in a way that let's pick a tool which actually goes the other way around. So we give them a very granular data, right? And the semantic layers, it knows, so we define a semantic layer and it knows how to aggregate measures. So we go the other way around, right? So we give the most granular data they could have, right? And they build the dashboards themselves. So and it's obviously kind of for a lot of people it was like a new paradigm, right? New way of thinking, right? So you don't have like a pre-built dashboards for you. You have to build them yourself. But it actually enabled, first of all, a lot of team to do self-serve in a way that is just impossible with dashboards, right? If you know what you want, if you know your business, you can easily map out very quickly, how would you do in Excel, right? So if you see like Excel, okay, give me this column, right? It's pretty much the same with our tool. You think not in terms of what the final visualization looks like. You think in terms of okay, what kind of data I need. And so some teams, they are very like natural, like you said, with our finance department is probably like they are one of the like heavily included people in the BI our ecosystem because they are so proficient with Excel. They are power user in BI tool as well because it's so natural for them to think in terms of tables and not in terms of visualizations that it was a natural for them to actually start using self-serve. For other teams, we've done some work on how to educate them. So we have if you are completely new to the system, we have some educational materials. We also have office hours where everyone can drop in and say hey, I don't understand how this thing works, right? And we can guide you step by step. Okay, if you want this, you go there, and usually when you show people exact example, they learn faster, right? Because they see the output very fast, and they can iterate, they can adjust what you've built for them, right? And it is a slow process obviously for some departments, but I'm amazed how fast we picked up this tool. Obviously we started with power users, with product managers who are more data involved, right? But once we opened it for the whole company, those who are interested and those who are interested in data for their departments, they are very quickly picking up the basics, and now they can do self-serve for their departments. So yeah, it's obviously a pass, right? So it's obviously you need to teach people, you need to evangelize how to work with it, how to properly work. Yeah, but it takes time, but it paid off very much for us.
So let's move on to some uncomfortable but honest questions. So what's the biggest data lie companies tell themselves?
Obviously, a lot of companies believe that their data is perfect, right? And they obviously very surprised when you tell them that actually not. If it's written in the backend, it still can be wrong, right? It still can show you incorrect results, right? And this is where sometimes data team get this blame that your metric is incorrect. Actually, no, the source data is incorrect, right? And we have to adjust for that.
Next question is modern analytics over engineered, or it's just correctly engineered right now?
I would say it depends. It depends on the company. It depends on the past experience of the data team who works in the company. Because I've seen that sometimes when a person comes from some specific setup, so for example, they had very heavy code-based workflows where they have Airflow, they had DLT or Airbyte on-prem, and they've used a lot of Python, they've used Scala, they used Spark, and when such person starts working in a more cloud environment where we have low code, no code tools, it sometimes breaks something into them, why don't we use code? And you have to say that's not the point, right? So the point of data is not using the code. The point is to bring value, right? To communicate insights, to help our business. And this is one of the way you can do. You can, it's just, as I said, it's justifiable for big companies, Google, Netflix, right? They can justify hiring more engineers because they have quite custom solution, because they have enormous scale, right? They have to think outside the box, which is impossible to do with no code, low code solutions, right? It's only possible with the code, right? But when you work in pretty much standard setup where you have, your backend database, you have some number of external data sources, and your business questions are pretty much similar, simple in a way that you don't have to do a lot of advanced stuff, right? If you want to only know the metrics of your company, you don't need to over engineer, right? So, and if you try to go this way, you basically you basically stall your progress, right? Because what you can do
Right.
in one day with no code solution, you can spend like 3 weeks in code solution, right? Which obviously is
Right.
cost and money for the company. So yeah.
Right. At the end, when I joined my another organization, so current organization, sorry. So I thought like in the beginning, why we are not using that tool? Why we are not using this tool? And slowly, when I started working, I got to realize that first I need to understand the business, because at the end, what I am hired for is basically to solve the solutions. And even if I
Exactly.
can give solutions in a spreadsheet, in a PDF file, in a Word, doesn't matter. It just I need to solve the problem. And however I'm solving, it's my business. It's not manager's business. It's not like the company's business. They don't want to know how you are.
For sure. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah.
Let's try to discuss some hot topics basically right
Okay.
now in the market. So
Okay.
not directly going into AI and all, but yeah, we will try to start with where AI actually helps analytics, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I treat AI more like a tool, which and everyone obviously should know this tool, right? Everyone obviously should care about, the latest developments and, be like in the trend. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to try everything, be reasonable and don't feed your company data to ChatGPT, obviously. Right. But there are like I can see a few things emerged that are actually helpful, and they're helpful in data and probably in general in IT. But at least I found them, for myself useful in my setup. So one thing I can definitely say is the emerge of agents. So like agentic workflows where you can say, we have, so in our example, we have some of the work that, usually this is like a technical debt that we need to fix, right? Or some smaller changes that we know that we need to, to tackle. It's actually now pretty easy to assign this type of work to AI agent, right? And they can get you from 50 to 90% done without you touching the code, like without you touching the keyboard,
Right. Right.
for the specific solution. So, one example I could give you, like, let's say we had the other day the alert from our DBT project that some data is wrong, and we figured that we have a new accepted value in our DBT test. So for the person who would do this job, who would fix this test manually, it would be you go to the database, you see what's the new value, you create a pull request, you create the code, you test it, you create a pull request, you ask for someone to review your code, and once the code is reviewed, you only then merge it to your production database, right, to your production branch, and only then it's fixed, right? So kind of a lot of steps, right? And all steps are necessary, you cannot skip them. What you can do with AI, so when you see such kind of alert, you could say, hey, please add, please check what is the new value of the column, add it to accepted values, and basically create a PR. And then you do your work that that you worked on previously. In 20 minutes, you have a ping that, hey, I finished the work, right? You just open the PR, you just review the code, and you approve and merge, right? So it's like
Right.
getting back 20 minutes of your time for free almost, right? And
Right.
if it's quite it's not necessarily have to be a simple task, but it have to be task that is very properly scoped and defined, right? So if you can do proper prompt engineering, those agentic workflows, they can get you very, very long. One other area where AI is useful is code reviews. So what we found that, so right now on all our pull requests, we have the code reviews enabled, code reviews by AI enabled by default. So whenever someone creates a code, we first check it through Copilot, right? So and what I find that it's becoming more and more useful the more you give it this job, right? Because it gets the context. It you can fine tune with some parameters, and like obviously like sometimes you have pretty like generic code review comments
Right.
which we just resolve. But sometimes it can give you very interesting angle on your code, which actually like helped us a few times to change the decision from one solution to another, just because Copilot gave us very good hint on what could go wrong, what how it can be improved. And yeah, I find it very useful because you can like as even with the human reviewer, sometimes you may skip some like important parts in a way that like not intentionally, right? But like if you do like I don't know, copy paste, or if you have like 20 similar statements in SQL, and it's very hard if they distinguish by like a couple of characters, it's very hard to spot by like human eye, right? But it's very easy to
Right.
spot by
Right.
AI. It will tell you right
Right.
away that you probably copy pasted and forgot to rename the alias, right? Or
Right. Right.
stuff like that. So that's very useful. And like obviously the probably the most common use case is obviously like the knowledge base, where you just either too lazy or you just don't know how to ask properly this question from Google, right? You just ask ChatGPT like how to do this or that, or like what's the problem with my solution, so just like a
Right.
general chat experience. Yeah.
I guess for me, it's always like brainstorming with ideas, or basically
Mm-hmm.
because I have just started, so of course I don't have much experience with data architectures and all. So yeah, it helps me to actually suggest me on that side of the thing, that side of my work,
Cool.
basically data architectures, how to like I can build multiple relationships, how can I work with like some KPIs if I need to define when I have like 20 of tables and somehow they are
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
got linked and all. So yeah, I like to play
Yeah.
with that, and I also like to actually like just play with the colors, because when I build dashboards, so I like to present it
Mm-hmm.
in a very good manner. So if anyone sees, they can okay, numbers are good,
For
but
sure.
also the design is also very impressive. So I like to, because I search, of course, when you see like different kind of dashboards, so for the inspirations and all, so I keep searching, I keep taking the
Mm-hmm.
screenshots, whatever I find in the internet. But yeah, then I need to define that what color gonna exactly match with those kind of shades and colors. So yeah, I guess
Nice.
if you use it more like brainstorming, that would be very good. It can save your time. You just don't need to use it to replace yourself or basically your thinking. If you're replacing in
Yeah.
that way in the beginning, that can be bad. Let's start with some quick questions. The first question is, what are the skills juniors should double down on?
Yeah, so obviously the presentation skill, obviously the skill of writing clear SQL, that like readable SQL is better than clever SQL. So you still, when you are a junior, you try more on hard skill, and when you grow, this is like even like for the middle titles, you try more on the communication and like soft skills, I would say.
Next question for the what mid-level folks should stop doing?
I think nothing. Like mid level is exactly the point where you have to grow on all fronts, right? And where you have to be like this T-shaped person, where and technical part and business part and communication part and soft skills. So because this will help you decide what kind of senior you want to be. So don't stop. Just double down on everything you can.
Double down on everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, how to stand out in your career without chasing tools?
Yeah. Obviously, try to make. To help make an impact, right? So if you see that something is a manual work, try to automate it, right? Automate it. If you see that someone is using wrong dashboards, tell them how to use proper dashboards, or like how to use proper metrics. So just speak up and obviously work on presentation skill. This is still sometimes a good as I mentioned, sometimes you deliver good data, but without a proper story, it's just useless. So work on that.
Right. Remote versus on-site realities. So, what do you prefer?
I currently work in hybrid mode, where I have 3 days in the office, 2 days in home office, and I like it set up because it's like a balance between socializing and still having flexibility to do to have like a comfort of your home. So yeah, I'm more for the in between hybrid mode. Yeah.
That's great, because for me, I'm a social person, so I cannot live every day in front of a computer unless there are people to talk. So yeah,
For
I
sure.
guess you and me are same in this. Okay, this now rapid fire segment. So just we'll start with, you have to choose one. Okay, you cannot
Okay.
skip.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay, SQL or Python?
SQL.
DBT is overrated or essential?
DBT is essential.
One book every data professional should read.
I like Lean Analytics.
Oh,
It's very
Lean.
old book. Lean Analytics.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same kind of framework as Lean Startup, it's very old book, like maybe 15 years ago was written, but it's good foundation for all the analytics work, and from there you can go anywhere you want. If you want more in engineering, you still will benefit by learning the business, the analytics part of your job.
One skill everyone one skill everyone ignores, but very important.
I would say presentation. It's tricky question, really tricky question, because different people can have different skill issues, and like they need to develop in like other in different areas. Yeah, so I don't know, like it just like, for example, for me, what's more important is when you can present what you found. That's the most important for me.
What question should every data professional ask themselves once a year?
Do I make any impact on the business? Because this will help them understand the gaps and grow.
With all the conversation, if you have to hire me, okay,
Mhm.
in your data team, so
Yep.
why would you hire me, and why would you not hire me?
Yeah, I will hire you if like when you ask questions, when I give you some tasks or requirements, if you would question them, if I would see that you try to get to the very essential of this task, of this request, it signals to me that you want to deliver your best solution, right? So you want to understand the solution, and when you understand the solution, you can actually you actually can create this best solution, right? Otherwise, you would create some out of reality delivery, right? Output. I wouldn't hire you if you would be very robotic and very like if you would reply with cliches. That would be like a very red flag that you're probably you over prepared for the conversation, where you just used ChatGPT, and like you didn't care much about our company, our team, and you didn't pay much attention to our needs. So yeah, care about the company you want to where you want to be hired, right? And ask questions. This reassures us that you're actually a person who can get into the weeds and deliver your best outcome.
That sums up, I guess.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. See you on LinkedIn. Okay.
Great.
Bye bye. Have a good day.